Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and this past weekend in Singapore, there was a huge One Piece card game event. It was for the One Piece World Championship Prelim series, essentially a preliminary tournament to get invites for their Asia Championship at the end of the year. Obviously, only Asia has these events right now since they're the only ones to have the card game, but obviously we'll probably get some in the next year once it gets fully released in North America and other territories. But it was 412 players, 8 rounds with a top 16 cut as well. So huge event. And also shouts to Captain's Den for running it, posting the deck list, and also having a live stream. Big shouts to that. That's going to be linked in the description, as well as in this document that's linked in the description, as well as shoutouts to Chaz for giving me some information and being one of the commentators. Make sure to follow both of their accounts. I really do appreciate this. And as just in general, Captains for posting these deck lists for us is fantastic. So I do appreciate them doing that. And if you guys do appreciate this video, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button for me as well. I did go ahead and put all of the deck list into onepiececardgame.dev just because some of the pictures were a little rough, and I wanted to make sure that for English people who are trying to get into this game, they know exactly what cards were being played. So with that aside, going into this top 16 breakdown, we did have 5 pro Kaido, 4 red Luffy, 4 of the red green Law, and then 3 of the Eustass kid. So pretty much all but 4, or all but one of the leaders were the star deck leaders, which is really interesting. And obviously we don't have a lot of variety of leaders right now. The game simply just came out, and so but yeah, Kaido I think is just hands down the best purple leader, and then just a bunch of ways to play red green or red green from there. I will say I am kind of surprised that we did not see a Zoro leader in this top 16. I think he's kind of pretty close to Luffy in terms of skill, and just seeing none of them in this top 16 was interesting. But other than that, I think these are 4 of the 5 top. I put Zoro still in the top 5 leaders in the card game, at least for this Romance Dawn set, and they're all just very strong. I did also want to mention that they did not play out for first place simply because first and second got the same pricing, so they just split it there anyways. So that's why it's a top 2, top 4, top 8, top 16, just because each one of these top kind of bars got the same pricing for it. So that is why it's like that. There's no true first place, just because they split it at the end. And obviously a long weekend of playing One Piece, like what's one more game, which means pretty much nothing. I kind of understand that. So we're going to go over one of each of the lists for each of the leaders, going from the top placing list for each leader, starting with Gavin's Eustass kid. Starting off, we do have Gavin's Eustass kid list that did get top 2 in this tournament. And in the North American limited battle series, I think Eustass kid is probably the best leader right now. It's just so aggressive. The leader skill is so great. It's never ever truly dead. And being able to have a leader that can swing twice in a game that has you can't attack with a card normally when you first play it, I think is fantastic. So this kind of build, I think it's kind of weird, that kid can be either very aggressive or defensive in a lot of ways. Being able to hit 2 of your opponent's characters with your leader 2 can be very nice. So this is, I think, more of a kind of control build for it too, where you just kind of slowly chip away your opponent's small cards on board, and then you're able to play your big boy Eustass kids, your 7 drops and your 8 drops, and then they are very, very hard to get rid of, as well as they're very aggressive and defensive at the same time. So low end is just your searchers. So we do have 4 of the Bonnie, 4 of the Koizuki. Koizuki is able to find any of the one. It's like a jewelry Bonnie. So this finds supernovas, which means your Beige, your Killer, your Cat Viper, your Apu, your Killer, and your Trafalgar Law, as well as your Basil Hawkins. And then and it's also just your big boy kids too, because of that. And then your Koizuki is able to find any Wano country, so it can be Aizu, it can be Okiku, it can be itself, or it can be also the Paradise Waterfall. So counter your leader, one of your characters gets plus 2k power during the battle, then set one of your characters to active. So this can be fantastic if you have a card such as Basil Hawkins or something where you want it to be able to block, even something for example, the Eustass kid, right? So if you block with this and then you use the Paradise Waterfall, you'll be able to restand it, make it live, and then they have to kind of attack over it again, which is very strong. So just a lot of obnoxious cards for a deck like this to have it stay around. So you find these, you have the killer, which can be a blocker, as well as some card draw if you have 3 or more characters. Your cat vipers that just on play rest from your opponent's characters with a cost of 3 or less. Your poo, which is just a super counter that you can search. Aizu, same as well. This just gets to rest one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. So just a better version of cat viper, more times just 1 cost more. Killer just for some cheap removal if needed. Okiku, just dawn times 1 attacking, rest one of your opponent's characters at a cost of 5 or less, which is incredibly strong. And this is just kind of, I think, a really good deck to counter the Trafalgar Law list that we'll be seeing too. They try to go wide with a bunch of weenies, and a deck like this is able to get rid of a bunch of them and then also just set up a big high end that they can't really contend with either. So Trafalgar Law, what a good card. Being able to recycle your stuff is very nice. Basil Hawkins, and then again these Eustass kids. So like this 8-drop, once you get it down, most of the time your opponent just kind of loses, which is kind of funny. And like honestly, and like that's just the idea. Like once you get to 10 dawn, you can just do like huge swings that your opponent's just not going to be able to counter over twice a turn, which is absurd. So I like this kid list. I honestly, this is close to what I've been running for Romance in a lot of ways. It's just this high end is so strong, and you get so much control aspect, and your opponent really just doesn't have a way to get around it unless they're playing Kaido and they drop their big old 10 drops. So that is this list, and again, congrats to Gavin there. And the other top 2 list is Yinghu with the red-green Law. And I'll say, like, this is a Law is really strong, and it's a deck that I didn't think was going to be very good in this format just by seeing it on the first impression, because playing 5 characters in a game where there's not a lot of card draw, and there are some, like, a lot of these don't have any protection, right? So it's very easy to get rid of some of these guys. But man, when you start going off with this deck, you feel invincible. It's very, very strong. So if you guys haven't played this list before, so this has activated once per turn for 2. If you have 5 or more characters, you return 1 character's owner's hand and play 1 with a cost of 5 or less with a different color. So you can bounce back. Let's say you attacked with a Zora, you can bounce it back to play a Trafalgar Law, which can bounce back something else to play the Zora again, right? There's a bunch of interesting and fun combos that this deck can do, and it just kind of cycles and recycles a bunch of your stuff. So obviously you play a bunch of your 1-drops to help you find your pieces. So Jiri Bonnie is one of them. Nami is great. What a good card this is. Tony Chopper, Otama, both, and all these are just like 2 counters as well. So the Otama, the Brook, and then we also have Cat Viper, as we saw in the Eustass kid list, and Aizu as well, and Killer. The Nico Robin is nice too. So this looks like more of like a control variant of this list, and in the sense, like, not truly control, but just a lot of ways to interact with your opponent's cards, instead of just like spamming a bunch of 5-drops or 1-drops and getting 5 out and hope your opponent can't really interact with them. This looks like more of a list that you can interact with your opponent a lot and do some fun stuff. So again, Trafalgar Law, this is such like one of the best green cards in the game, and green's like one of the best colors. Again, a blocker, that's a 6k for 5 that you can play something, like just being able to return something to hand and play something with a cost of 3 or less is very good. So such a good card in so many ways. And then we also have the other Trafalgar Law from the Star deck that just lets you, unsuspend something, so it's set it back to active. The 8-drop kid, as we saw in the other one, and then a couple of these red event cards. So Radical Beam, being able to get plus 4k if you have 2 life or less, is really easy when your leader is only a 4 life card. And then we also do have Roundtable for assumedly just the counter. If they play Eustass Captain Kid, this gives it minus 10k, which means it's a lot easier to swing over. And then Jet Pistol to get rid of anything with 6k DP or less, which is kind of easy to do as well. So kind of good stuff there. Really think Law is probably one of the best lists in the game right now. And it's, again, you have to respect it. If it can go off, you are in trouble. So congrats to Yinghu for there. And next up, we do have Calvin with their top 4 purple Kaido. And Kaido was the most represented for this list. And part of the reason, I think, is that it just has a lot of, like, it's the really only deck that has a lot of destruction power outright, and just the fact that you can ramp with it. But I gotta say, like, Calvin's quite a mad lad with some of these ratios. 4 of this 10-drop king is absurd. Like, there's so many cards that exist in this list that don't have any form of counter that I can only assume are just stuck in your hand half the game, but when you are able to resolve it, you feel really, really good. being able to just resolve a Kaido when you are playing against one of these lists when they don't have, like, if you're playing against a Law list and they have 5 characters out, just play out your Kaido, wipe their board. Sure, you go -6, but like then they have nothing left. It's incredibly strong, and just kind of the game plan. So obviously the -7 can help you out there, but we do have some 2-drop blockers. We essentially double up because the Kurozumi from the set is just another Black Maria, more or less. And then we also do have the Uta from the film Star deck as well, just another blocker that Dawn -1. Rest one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less on block. So being able to do that lets you just defend twice with this, which is nice, and then kind of disrupt your opponent. Ulti and X-Ray super counters. Queen still probably the best purple card in form of just, it's a blocker, it's a 6k, and then being able to draw 2, discard 1 is such a good effect in a game like this. And then we have our top end, 6 of the Star Deck Kings, 1 of the set 1 Kings that lets you pop something with 3 or less or 2 or less, which is again really good against Trafalgar Law most of the time. We have 2 of these guys, and it's as weird as it is, like putting one of these down on turn 6 on curve, especially if you ramp up with your Onigashima Island, means that your opponent's going to have a really tough time getting rid of this guy. And it's an 8k, so like if your opponent wants to not get damage from it, they have to use a blocker, or they have to use like 2 or 3 cards in hand. It's a very, very strong card. Ironically, even though it's just a big vanilla, just to be able to consistently put pressure on your opponent, and it's a counter, so it's never dead in hand. It's a really interesting choice, but I see a lot of purple players play either this or the level 5 vanilla, just because it's a big body that your opponent's going to have a hard time getting rid of, and it can pressure a lot of damage if you need it to as well. And then 3 of the Star Deck Kaido, and then again 4 of these 10-drop Kaidos. What a mad lad. I can't imagine, like this just seems like overkill, but man, when this drops down, your opponent's just losing everything. And but the only weakness is that, like, if you're playing against Eustass kid, they're like, sure, you clear their board, it feels bad, but then you're probably getting 2 12k swings immediately from that, and you'll have no defense because you'll have no Dawn up, as well as all of other characters on your board as well are going to be gone. So something to consider there. Blast Breath for 4 is great, and then Thunder Bwaga to help you ramp back up, for especially like if you have a big Kaido turn with either the leader, with one of the characters, or just a big Dawn ramp, being able to use that to get the Dawn back. And then Onigashima Island, of course, you want to see this every game. It's very, very good. So congrats to Gavin on their finish there. And lastly, we have Noel with their red Monkey D. Luffy. This is a straight aggro deck, and it's so good, and it's fantastic. And honestly, this is a list that is pretty generic to any red leader. So this could easily, if you like Zoro more, you can 100% just put Zoro as the leader for this list as well. But I think I dunk on Luffy for being the worst starter deck in the North American meta, at least in the limited series. But man, he gets so many good tools in Romance Dawn. The 1-drop Nami is probably the best 1-drop in the game, if not one of the best cards in the game. Being able to just, for one, look top 5 for a Straw Hats crew is so good. It's like the most common trait in the game, and in a game when there's literally minimal cycle and you have to do a lot, like for one, being able to search out literally so many different cards that have rush that can win you the game on the spot at times is super duper good. We do also have some 2k counters, so the Gordon being able to place 1 card to your hand to bomb your deck to draw 1, so more cycle is good. Sanji gives us a Straw Hats, so you can find it. Otama as well, and the Nico Robin, and then our myriad of Rush Boys, the 3-drop Zoro, the 5-drop Luffy, the 6-drop promo Luffy, as well as the 9-drop Shanks from the set. 4 of these bad boys if you have the money for it. Honestly, like, being able to swing with this once per game feels pretty good, or once per turn, and then like being able to, like, your opponent not be able to block with one of their weenie blockers, like a Tony Chopper or Bartholomew, because of its effect. I think that's strong. Sometimes it feels like overkill because you'll be stuck with some of these in your hand, but it's incredibly good, and it's very good if they have like an Eustass kid on the opposite side, because it means that they actually have to counter out of the attack if you need to. So I do like the Shanks in this list, and it's very strong. Going to the myriad of event cards, we do have 1 guard point, 1 of the Diablo Jumble, 2 of the Gum Gum Red Hawk with your leader up to 1 of your characters gets plus 4k power for the turn. Then K up 1 to 1 of your characters with a 4k power or less, which is quite nice. And then all of this also just has the trigger of give 1 of your opponent's leaders or characters minus 10k power during this turn. So you can't pop something, but you can block like another attack for free, which is nice. A round table again, probably for Eustass Kid, and then a 4 jet pistols, because for 4 being able to pop something 6k or less is strong when most blockers in this game are 6k or less. But that is going to be it for this top 16 breakdown. Obviously only 4 leaders, but if you guys want to see any of the other lists, I do implore you going through them. There's obviously some choices for this. It's the first set, so there's not a lot of choice, but there is some, and I know a lot of you guys will get some interest from it. So again, thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. If you made it this far, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button, and I'll catch you all next time.